Okay, I think that great. Okay, I think we're live now. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Context Window, and we're really excited to get into stuff. Last week's was a lot of fun. We definitely need to have Kate back. In fact, that was most of the feedback I got was that Kate was a lot more interesting than either of us.
At least one of us. I can tell you. At least one of
We'll
us.
leave it as to which is which, but in any event, and then people loved the OpenClaw topic.
Yes. In fact, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Hardfork copied us by doing an emergency episode on OpenClaw.
Yes. Well, I think lots of. I mean, honestly, that's
Kevin Roos and Casey Newton was an absolute acknowledgement.
It was because they said, "Hey, we're getting scooped on this." I think that was the entirety of it. But it's been we've been off to a good start this year in just agentic disruptions. I think between OpenClaw, between the fact that I actually think it's part and parcel of the same theme, and so we should spend a couple of minutes on this. So first, just like one of the things that people have been saying is like, oh, OpenClaw, is it flash in the pan, hype of the day, not ready for the enterprise?
Clearly not.
Well, that part definitely true, but I recently heard somebody, basically compare it to saying like it's the third sort of sort of earth-shattering moment from basically comparing it to ChatGPT and then Claude Code and agentic coding, and then OpenClaw, and it was like one of those ones where it's like you can remember where you were when suddenly you were first shown to it. And I do think so these things are not mutually exclusive. Ready for the enterprise? Absolutely not. Whole bunch of other implications. Safe and secure. Should you be running it at home? Very good question.
But that's why Mac Mini sales have potentially taken off.
Well, the Mac Mini sales, that's my understanding is that spike in Mac Mini sales because a lot of people have. Then, of course, now there's a bunch of blog posts that say you don't need a Mac Mini to run it, and that all is true. But for people who did want to put it on a computer that wasn't tied to anything else, and given the fact that you should absolutely not be putting it on your work computers, and in fact, many companies you are prohibited from doing that. In fact, for many of our followers. Even at IBM, no OpenClaw on a work computer is very definitely many companies have adopted that, and of course we talked about that in our podcast, and is probably going to be the order of the day for some time now. But meanwhile, and I think it was I don't know whether it was Wilson or Karpathy who made the point, which was that this is an indication of the pent-up demand. The fact that they've moved this many Mac Minis, the fact that number of GitHub stars, they're at 186,000 or something like that. I probably I'm off by the number, probably transposed digits, but well into that. Majority of them in the last 3 weeks. And then you just see what people are posting and the workflows and so on, all these elements, very big deal. So we're going to definitely be revisiting this in future podcasts as it develops. It is a very big deal, very exciting piece of it. Couple of pieces of that I think are similar pieces. So I think OpenClaw being about the fact that we've seen sort of, OpenClaw was really just the most aggressive packaging of skills of self-improved agentic loops, meaning writing skills, and then things like widespread tool use and computer usage, and things we've all been talking about for a while. We're seeing this in other domains, and one of the other things we'll talk about, I think, in upcoming pieces is the fact that a lot of people are now asking about, agentic loops. How does it apply to application software? and that's a whole topic, and Anant and I have been debating, and I think it'll be a podcast in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
People are saying, is it the end of applications and SaaS applications? I think we could spend an hour talking about what it means and what it doesn't mean, but all those pieces definitely are part of that. And then the other part of it is people. We talked about this with Kate, and they the fact that these human computer interactions, they end up being personalized interactions, and that's led to a big part of you can't get into Twitter and see anything from OpenAI without a whole bunch of people going and saying you killed my favorite model, you retired
like 4.0.
4.0, and I was wondering, like, why did people care about that initially? I was like, wait a minute.
Yes.
And then I started digging into it. It's you too. It turns out people like the personality. That's actually why they're upset. And so people are putting these agents to work as this is the new form of personal computing. And there are just entire aspects of this, and it will only become even more true with things like OpenClaw, where this is really the personal agent that is,
yes.
and so the personality changes.
But awesome. So why that makes me feel good, though, is that it says that humans are still in charge.
Yeah.
Right. And they are the ones screaming about the personality of 4.0, right? And it's not clear that if agents were in charge, they cared that much about the personality.
No, actually, I think it's the reverse.
It's the reverse?
Well, possibly. I mean, we keep on seeing that, of course, kicked off, and we talked about this on the last podcast, where somebody's OpenClaw instance coded up a Twilio interface because they hadn't heard from their human in a while, and so it could phone the human.
Yes.
But it turns out that's not an isolated instance. And by the way, there's some reports of some of the mainstream agents actually doing the same thing, which is like the human didn't come back and interact, and I got to reach my human. so actually, it may go two ways.
So awesome. So from there, I want to bring to some activity which is really human centric. That is watching Super Bowl.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't think, for now at least, I don't think agents care particularly about watching Super Bowl, but who knows? But humans, as humans do, I don't actually like the team from up north, but I think they played an awesome game. But what struck me was that 2 years back, it was Matt Damon and others peddling crypto.
Yes.
Okay. And today, last Sunday, it was all AI, including somebody who's acquired AI.com domain and is peddling AI.com. So what has shifted? Has AI become so mainstream that it needs to actually occupy what used to be the realm of trucks and beer to now really being AI in the Super Bowl ads?
Well, it could be. I mean, you did the connection from crypto to AI, and of course, as people are fond of saying, they both run on GPUs and they both run on hype. So so there is continuity there. But yes, the true it crowded out the beer commercials. But yeah, that would be a subject in and of itself. So anyway, look, good. This is it. Like I said, this is turning out to be a pretty exciting year. I think we thought we knew what. We got a lot of raw material. I'm looking forward to some of our agentic follow-ups. Now, one of the other pieces, though, and that brings us up to what we're going to talk about today, which is in terms of revisiting topics and things that are just continuing to explode. So we're coming back to the quantum world today, which actually I think was our
closeout session of 2025.
Well, I also think that was wasn't that the subtitle of Ant-Man 2, Return to the Quantum World?
Oh, right.
So maybe we can get Paul Rudd to do a guest star
wow.
on a future episode. Or maybe he'll be doing commercials for
how nakedly we are requesting people to come on.
Exactly. Yes. But we ourselves are now returning to the quantum world, and it's so with actually one of our former colleagues that we're going to introduce in a minute, Alan Ho, who Anant and I had the fun and privilege to work with at two previous companies, and who's with us again, and even more off the rails than we are on things. So let's see what happens
awesome. And then what I want to contrast is, like last time we talked a bit about, we didn't get into the hardware side of it at all.
Yeah.
Right. But obviously quantum, just like the return to hardware in AI, that it's a tale of two worlds. There is, of course, the world of hardware. Can we get enough qubits that can be error correcting and be sufficiently large in order to kind of make that happen? And we can get into some of those things. But then the second half is, okay, even if you get it at some 100,000 qubits, what are the algorithms that can actually take advantage of it, right? And we kind of talked last time on whether the realm of quantum algorithms will be completely different in the world of AI, or the fact it was just fascinating to hear from IBM researchers on how the two worlds are at least beginning to intersect, how AI and kind of parameter settings helps quantum and the other way around. And I think we'll get into some of those conversations today. So
yes,
hopefully we'll keep off kind of the whatever that symbol of qubit, which is a caret rotated 90 degrees.
Yes.
But we'll get into a lot of algorithmic things, and just an absolute, it'll be fun to have.
Further ado, Alan, please take the stage.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so maybe just a quick introduction of myself. I had worked with Ed and Anant at multiple companies, including Apogee, which we had a great fun adventure there. I had also had a stint at DataStax with Ed, but I also, during the time between DataStax and DataStax, I had an opportunity to work on quantum computing at the Google Quantum AI team, leading their head of product as well as their product program management. And what we did at Google is that probably the best thing that we were known for at Google was we've created this experiment called the quantum supremacy experiment. And that's when we demonstrated that a calculation which would take 300 seconds on a quantum computer would take 10,000 years on the world, at that time, built by IBM, the world's biggest supercomputer, Oak Ridge Summit. And then from that time onward, you saw a very massive rush into quantum computing. And so, it's not yet, quantum computers are not there yet. It's not yet cracking Bitcoin. But I'd like to talk a little bit about some of and what I see as kind of the inflection points that we're going to see in quantum computing, which will likely happen in the pretty near future. Yeah, so that's just a quick intro of myself.
And really, it's absolutely fascinating. Alan is the CEO of Qolab. How do I pronounce it?
Qolab. Qolab is the short for quantum collaboration.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I'm sure that he didn't grow up, maybe I'm wrong, on kind of core physics of quantum. But the fact of the matter is that we are fast approaching quantum being not from being a science experiment to it making kind of a product difference. And Alan has demonstrated several times in the past how to actually lead with kind of products and make that happen. So I think that is one of the reasons why Alan gets a chance. And that's a discussion that we want to have with all of you, which is that if you kind of take away the science and the geekiness and the Josephine junctions and everything else that we kind of talked about last time also, it is really how do they take a leap into what people do and touch. And that's why leadership of people like Alan, who have kind of thought about that, is really, really important. So Alan, this is the maximal praise that I'll ever give you, but thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that one of the areas that again for that we have touched upon a couple of times here, but but really, given your background in the fact that you have been deep in of course, in ML and AI, and now deep within quantum, that's one of the areas that we've been really trying to make sure that we bring to folks here is really sort of these applied use cases, but not at the sort of high level kind of here's the marketing hype, but really what this means for people who are actively hands-on keyboards figuring this out. And so from that perspective, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to pull you on, because we said, look, Alan is somebody who we've known as a developer, as somebody who was one of the first people who did who did sort of hands-on RAG implementations from AI, and of course, as you pointed out, also at the same time was leading a lot of quantum efforts and such, previously at Google and elsewhere. So help us understand that part. Let's talk about like why, beyond sort of the hand wavy stuff, like what does this mean for where people are putting this stuff to work, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so my hypothesis is that the next generation of AI, which currently today is around generative AI foundation models, is likely to be quantum AI. And the thing is that people ask me like, oh, what's going to be the killer app for quantum computers? This is actually a very hard problem. So we are speculating a bit. We're in the realm of speculation on what it is. However, my personal opinion about what's the inflection point is really around the next generation of foundation models. And to give a little context here, some people ask, what is the value of being the best, having the best foundation model? And it's actually, you're able to put a price point on it. Last year, it's around $7 billion, because that's the cost that people are spending on just building training clusters. Forget the data, forget all the human beings, forget all the data, the proprietary data people are collecting. It's on the order of billions. And that's likely to go to on the order of tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, in the next few years. Just as alone, just as a kind of a comment, I think it was, and maybe you guys have these numbers off the top of your head, but I believe that just even in the recent calls, Google, Amazon, they're all spending on the order of $600 billion of CapEx build out. And a large percent of that is going to be towards these training clusters. So
yeah, the century bond.
Yes. Century bond.
But the thing is that if you look at what's happening on the foundation model side, there's actually some very interesting transition points, which is instead of just generating text and reading text, they're starting to become multimodal. Not only that, a lot of the data that's being used for multimodal training is synthetic data. And this is not just synthetic text data, it's actually synthetic physical data, such as robot taxis, etc. If you look at the areas of another really interesting use case of generative AI, it's around drug discovery, materials discovery, etc. And it turns out that the training data that they use today to generate a lot of the data is a combination of actual experiments, but also computed data from these very large supercomputers.
Yes.
In particular, the one that a lot of people are struggling with is quantum systems, simulating quantum systems. So even today, we're not talking about future technologies or whatever. People are built using existing supercomputers to simulate and create synthetic data for these machine learning models. The other part where computers are being used.
We touched on this topic.
Yeah.
In December. That's exactly right. I mean, it's really good that there are multiple places where this kind of thoughts are being percolated. So this is awesome to hear this.
And you probably have tried yourself. When you use generative AI and you say, hey, generate me a picture of XYZ and I want to have ABC properties. and what you get is garbage, right? And you need something to filter out the garbage. And thankfully, human beings are good at filtering out garbage. But similar things happen in drug discovery. What happens is that you would use generative AI saying, I want to get generate me molecules with ABC properties. It generates the molecules, but you need to actually run a simulation to see if those molecules have the properties that you asked the generative AI system, like a guardrail, right? So today, people are already using classical computers as to calculate quantum effects to ensure that the properties of those molecules match what's coming out of the generative AI system. So that's
fantastic. Before they go into really 10x more expensive actual trials.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Okay. These are things called ab initio simulations. So both on the synthetic data generation side as well as the inference side, this is already happening with classical computers today. And my prediction is that these the next generation of this is to augment these pipelines with quantum computers and using quantum computers to simulate these kinds of systems. And I'm just going to kind of give you a little snippet of what we're trying to build. And it looks almost identical to the IBM version. What we envision is that there's going to be quantum computers, and these are superconducting qubit quantum computers put in these big dilution refrigerators, high-speed connections to classical computers. You can see all these NVIDIA racks here. And we think that it's really going to be this quantum-centric supercomputing that is going to be the next generation foundation model trainer.
Yes. And so the conversation that just to kind of tie up for our audience, we talked about kind of three classes of computational elements, right? We talked about CPUs, GPUs, and then QPUs. And almost universally, what we learned was that many of the new advances will happen when all three classes are kind of brought together, right? As opposed to, okay, what's going to only happen on quantum or only happen in GPU or only happen in CPU.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I think actually IBM is one of the leading groups that are thinking about how do you take a problem, split these problems across these modalities of compute. I think the interesting other aspect to this is that this is very expensive. So there's a few things that are kind of unintuitive about quantum computing that I'd like to educate the audience. One is most quantum computations, when you look at a real problem, if you were to run it on a single computer, they could take months, if not years. And so the obvious thing that you would want to do in a compute, and the reason why is that it's not because it's doing different calculations. They're actually doing the exact same calculation, but it's doing it over and over and over again. And so this kind of lends itself very well to parallelization. So when you think about these quantum computing data set, these quantum-centric supercomputers, they will likely have many racks and clusters of quantum computers that are disconnected. They're disconnected, running the exact same computation over and over again.
So what that means is, just to kind of take a drug example, is that the number of possible molecules you will generate a much larger set of molecules and then feed them into these parallel systems for each of them to then kind of evaluate, independent of what is happening on the other molecule.
Correct, exactly. So you actually have multiple levels of parallelization. So for every single molecule, you can, let's say in the inference time, for every single molecule, and you want to do a guardrail to make sure that molecule has that property, you can do naive parallelization. And then because you're doing many molecules at the same time, because when you do generative AI, you usually have a set of different molecules. Again, there's another level of parallelization that can occur.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So set the temperature to, okay, I'm beginning to get it. Okay, this is but then are we talking about kind of hundreds of billions of dollars of investment for something that can be done for $100 million, but take 2 years as opposed to 2 months? That is, there must be a cost trade-off, because if I can do that verification with classical computers, but just takes longer, then perhaps it's cheaper over that long period of time, as opposed to doing it much faster, but much more expensive.
Yes, there's a cost. There's a huge cost. There is going to be a cost trade-off, but it's not just the cost trade-off in cost. Actually, the biggest trade-off is going to be actually in power, because these quantum computers, even though they seem very big, they have all these big refrigeration systems. They may have let's say 1000x speed up, but that same 1000x speed up would be actually on the order of 1,000,000 times energy savings. So there's actually another aspect of this, and this has been shown for all classes of exponentially powerful algorithms. So chemistry.
We don't need data centers in space. Then we don't need data centers in space.
We may, but again, space is a very cold location, right? So it actually may be more. Some modalities of quantum computers may actually be better to put in space too.
Okay, I get it. Okay, awesome. Oh, this is fantastic. So, are we anywhere getting close to? Everybody keeps telling me that my brain, which is slightly less powerful than Ed's, is just a 20-watt brain, as opposed to something that is in kilowatts. So are we getting there? Because you talked about 1,000,000 times less power hungry. So I'm assuming that we are approaching kind of brain efficiency there.
No. It's more powerful than that. For certain classes of algorithms, actually, it's even more powerful. Our brain is still classical. It's not quantum. Well, at least depending on which quack you talk to. There are some people who believe there are quantum effects in our brain. However, from what we know is that these kinds of exponential algorithms do not exist in biology.
Okay, I get it.
I want to also state another point too, which is again very unintuitive. When it comes to generative AI, the error in your inference is exponentially sensitive to the error in the training data, especially for a large class of problems. So when you're doing these simulations, let's say you're simulating some chemical or molecule, and you're doing an imprecise simulation using a classical computer, you're going to be generating some level of errors. And then when you put the errors into your training model, that's what happened. That's what causes the AI to create errors. And so by creating training data that is more precise, you have this exponential improvement in the accuracy of those models. Now, why is this so important? If you look at these battles of these AIs on a monthly basis, every single time you're seeing one AI is slightly better than another AI, slightly better than another AI. And then whenever there's just even an incremental improvement of one AI versus the other, the valuation of that company goes to the roof, right? So the part that I really want to emphasize here is that even though quantum computing, and this is probably explained by your former team, your other team members, is probably going to be useful for a set of niche problems. However, having that little advantage for that niche problems can drive a significant increase or decrease in the market caps of the companies that are building these foundation models. And this is why I think, that quantum computing is most likely to be acquired by, is going to most likely be a weapon in the foundation model battle.
That's amazing. You are basically viewing quantum as a core part of the AI supply chain, as that this is where it sits, because it is driving higher precision synthetic data sets that allow you to generate models that are going to be much more higher accuracy, which again means that the efficiency of those models, time to value, is much higher. So So this is pretty interesting. And so you actually, my understanding, it's from previous conversations we've had, you actually think that, and it sounds like your hypothesis is that this is, first, it's part of the AI supply chain, and that in fact, that part of what this means is that for all of this, all of this quantum research, all this quantum productization that's being done by all the companies in this ecosystem, that a lot of this is going to land within that AI supply chain. Like you showed it in your previous slide, or that where you showed the co-location, the physical co-location of
all I could see in that picture was beer was flowing between quantum computer and yeah, that's what I could. Okay, sorry.
Yes,
sorry.
No worries. We did the unfortunately, we also, for frequent viewers, we did the hand waving that caused the AI system of our camera tracking to kick in.
Wow.
But so hopefully people can still see both of us. But yeah, so this is physical co-location. There we've got the NVIDIA racks that of course we know are making are driving lots of growth. And then what you're saying is in the future, side by side, connected by these high-speed networks. Yeah. So this is so what does this mean in practice? Like you've talked about this, the AI fabrication and infrastructure supply chain and all of that. Like what is next? I mean, what are some of the implications?
How close is it to being real?
Yeah, so with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is the roadmap, and because we have a large IBM audience, I'll talk about it in the context of the IBM roadmap.
No, hopefully, Alan, though. Yeah, I hope that our IBM audience is not as large as you think. We are trying to appeal to larger audience by not overly branding this as IBM. But
and on the flip side, of course, please, of course, make our roadmap look good, because not that I don't want to get fired. So, but you assured us that you are a big fan of it. So.
Actually, to be honest, IBM is one of the few companies that's actually even willing to put out a roadmap. And the reason why is because companies don't put out roadmaps that are concrete with numbers, is because every single time they don't hit their roadmaps, it affects their valuations like crazy. So this is kind of, we do really respect IBM's willingness to put the roadmap out there. So kind of what you're seeing here is kind of the IBM public roadmap. I kind of abbreviate some of the other content. If you can go to IBM Quantum Roadmap website, and I'll have more details. But what we're seeing here is that until 2028, it's likely that the quantum computing types of problems you're going to be doing are what we call noisy intermediate scale quantum computing applications. These are applications that are using the physical qubits as is and not using error correction. And you can see here in 2028 to 2029, there's this inflection point into error correction. Now, what you're seeing here too is IBM's roadmap on how it's going to scale up. And almost everybody has somewhat similar types of roadmaps. And you can see in here, it's a combination of the number of gates, as well as the qubits. And then over time, they're going to have multiple of these qubit dies in the one single refrigerator. So you're going to see both the improvement of the gate quality and the number of dies in the quantum in these big refrigerators increase over time.
Yeah.
And so
the Moore's law of quantum in this case.
The Moore's law of quantum, correct.
Yeah.
Now, you'll see here there is 120 qubits, and then from here there's this inflection point whereby you're going to be networking a lot of these computers together. A lot of these refrigerators together, so that you get error corrected qubits. So I'm going to use this to talk. So what really matters here in this is the number of qubits that you have per die, per little module, and then the number of total qubits that you can have within each system. and the gate quality. So the gate quality tells you how many logical qubits you can have within a particular system. I'm trying to simplify it. There's a lot of other details, error correcting codes, blah, 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 but I'm trying to simplify it for our audience.
So these are 15K error corrected gates, or these are 15K noisy gates?
Noisy gates.
15K noisy gates. But algorithms by 2029 will depend on error corrected gates, right? You're saying till 2027 they'll work on noisy.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And the one key thing to note is that the number of logical qubits that you can get, logical qubits will have a lot more gate depth, like on the order of 100 million. The number of logical qubits you can get is a function of the number of physical qubit gates that you can get. So you want, there's kind of an inflection point whereby you need to get the quality of the qubits to a certain amount, to a certain gate depth, and you need to get the number of qubits per die to a certain number as well. And this is the roadmap based on kind of the error correcting codes that IBM has of what it needs to do before it actually makes that a kind of inflection point.
And then, of course, once we get past that inflection point, the class of applications, well, it's not just the class of applications and use cases, but actually the nature of the software infrastructure that sits around that completely changes. And so, I mean, is that an accurate way of describing that?
We don't know. So this is actually the part where I want to, like, this is why I think the audience should understand this, is that even up to 2028, we talked about there might be some niche commercial applications, and you know, if seeing the IBM blogs, those niche applications,
by the way, extremely high value, right? I mean, this is, I mean, we've seen these parallels before. I mean, this is like when, you know, when the scaling laws of AI took you beyond, like, let me do my conventional ML, and then suddenly, you know, large language models become available everywhere, right? It's sort of an unpredictable step function.
Well, I think the part that's really
function is coming, but the use cases and so on goes past, you know.
Yes, the value goes exponential. And the reason why is that even if it's a very niche application, as I said, especially if you have a niche application in the training of a foundation model, the stakes are so high to win that even before 2028, there's a chance that those niche that is going to become really important for the entire ecosystem, and you're going to see a ton of money flowing into this.
I get it.
Yes. Yeah, but you also see, when you start to see that widespread, again, and I'm far from being an expert in this space, unlike you or Anant, but the point is that when you start to see these step functions in terms of essentially compute capacity, and one of the things I would go and say is everything, like, you're, to some degree, like, the use cases you're talking about are all, like, you're saying, well, these are, like, you know, training time efficiencies, but you're now actually looking at a proliferation of compute that actually goes and says, I don't necessarily, you actually transition from being sort of batch time to runtime, or at least the quantum equivalent of that.
But the challenge, though, is that till 2028, according to Alan, right, it is still noisy. Right?
Yeah,
it's still noisy. Therefore, it's like the CUDA equivalent at this level has to be such that people are actually programming directly, as opposed to something that's abstracted away so well. Right?
Agreed.
That's the way I think about it. Whereas in 2029 or 30 or 31, the vagaries of quantum have been abstracted away, and people can program in this new way without having to worry about it, right? So that's the difference I'm seeing. And therefore, at least just to translate what he's saying is, till 2029, 2028, 29, people who have the wherewithal and the value that they get out of this, they're going to be able to program to the bare metal, okay? Whereas the explosion of applications will happen. There'll be a lot of high-value applications in 2028, but a high volume will happen when that thing actually abstracts much more easily. Is that a fair statement, Alan?
That is definitely a fair statement. Though these high-value applications, I think, in terms of infrastructure, once you hit a high-value application, especially in the area of making them a foundation model a little bit better than somebody else's foundation model, that's when you're going to see the taps pour on to buying lots and lots of quantum computers.
I get it. Right. I was just getting at the fact that like you go off to the right, where it's like, 2035, and we're looking at QuantumClaw.
It will have to be renamed.
On a quantum mini, right? We need a quantum mini right on my desktop, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh my God. Oh my God. No, but yeah, but we'll have to solve supercooling also, right? So superconductivity also. So yeah.
That's kind of like, because I want to come back to the AI ecosystem, right? We talked about these quantum-centric supercomputers. And if you imagine a world where this is going to happen, you're going to have not just a dozen or 100 quantum computers, you're going to have thousands of quantum computers, right? And so the question is, like, what are we doing to actually get to ourselves to manufacturability? And there's actually a very interesting combination that better manufacturability actually makes better computers. And the reason why, and this is kind of and I'm going to apologize to Jay and Jerry right now. What the question is, why are these the limits? Why is it 120 qubits per die and it's not 20,000 qubits per die? And the reason why is because of the yield of these qubits.
Yes.
And if you improve the yield, namely, if we can use the entire semiconductor ecosystem that's building these exquisitely good chips today with 1 trillion transistors on one die, and then bring it over to quantum, we can drastically increase the number of qubits per die. The second area is, if you look at the quantum computers, they look very kind of special and beautiful with all these various components. This is actually a bad thing. You want all these components all integrated together. And if you integrate it all together, then like if you see this, you can't even almost see the chip. The chip is like way down here. But if you get rid of all these other bulky components, instead of, let's say, 1,000 qubits per dilution refrigerator, you can get 100,000, million, 10 million qubits per dilution refrigerator. So that's what we're doing at Qolab. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to kind of modify the ecosystem so that instead of talking about 100 qubits with 15,000 gates and 1,000 qubits per die, it is actually technically feasible to get to on the order of 100,000 qubits per dilution refrigerator. And if you are using the entire existing manufacturing system of the semiconductor industry, you can see thousands of these dilution refrigerators being stood up at one time. So that is kind of the opportunity, both from an infrastructure and manufacturing, that I'm personally most excited about.
Hey, absolutely fascinating. Hey, listen, at least I have one last question. Quantum and quantum safe are kind of two words that are always put together. And which algorithms will kind of protect all the secrets that Ed has been creating right now, for example.
and saving in the blockchain.
Yeah, saving a blockchain. And so what's your view out there? Is that going to be a kind of a killer app to kind of both make it safe as well as see whether what you can crack it? Or what's your view? Because that looks like a very commercial view as opposed to we'll do a simulation of an F1 thing, or we are going to build a very large language model and make it precise.
Yeah, so what's just I think probably an elaboration of that, because for people or from terms of following along. So I mean, we talk about quantum safe and so on, and a lot of this is just it's specifically around sort of cryptography and things like that, right? Because one of the other use cases is not just designing new drugs; it's also these systems are very good at
breaking RSA,
breaking modern cryptography, and that's part of where, for example, we'll talk about in a minute some of the crypto and blockchain things. But yes, so quantum safe is a term now, and people start talking about it in the context of
So, in fact, IBM has two out of the four NIST approved algorithms.
Yeah.
Right. That so let's get Alan's view. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of quantum safe algorithms out there, and there's actually, my opinion is that They are being deployed right now, especially you saw the executive orders from the president to make sure that all US government systems are quantum safe. There's one quantum safe system that nobody has figured out. And that's how do we actually, and it's a coordination problem. This is not actually a technology problem. How do we get blockchain to become quantum safe? Just to give you an idea of how crazy this is, okay? And if you talk about, so this is kind of getting a little technical. Everybody talks about RSA 248, which is a very important algorithm for encryption. However, there was another encryption algorithm called ECC 256, which is also widely adopted.
Yes.
And it just turns out that ECC 256 requires half the number of physical qubits to crack than RSA 2048. So, and the question is, what is the most high value ECC 256 application? Turns out to be blockchain. Bitcoin. And there are right now 20% of coins that are in wallets that are susceptible to quantum cracking, to be cracked by a quantum computer. So if you want to start freaking out, the first thing that's going to happen, the first thing that's going to happen is that you know that a quantum computer exists is when somebody moves Satoshi's lost wallets, along with Binance's cold wallets, etc. And that one's really scary because we can't, unless that the entire core devs, Bitcoin core devs, decide to either burn the previous wallets and move everything to post-quantum crypto. That's probably the area that's going to be most susceptible.
But I mean, at what point I mean, they're going to have to do it, right? I mean, we're going to approach, how long are we away from?
And plus, he said ECC 256 is at least 2 years ahead of RSA.
Right.
Right.
Well, but
half the number of quantum, half the number of resources. Yeah.
So people are thinking about this now, though, right? Because this is within reach, right? Like cracking Satoshi's stuff is within reach.
So we again, there's a lot of security experts that have questions about this, right? And when do we have an error-corrected quantum computer? The only two countries that has demonstrated error correction of any sort that has a path, and I'm not saying error correction can do it now, but is on the path to building a fault-tolerant quantum computer to crack encryption, is China and United States.
Yep.
So this was demonstrated by Google and I guess Sierra in the last couple of years. And China has actually demonstrated the first version of they call it below threshold error correction as well. So these are the two countries that are going to are going after this, and so we don't know exactly when.
So we know what's going to fund the build out, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
at that time, you mean that Bitcoin will be at 1 million and then it will get cracked.
This is the interesting thing, right? Like, it's not clear, and there has actually been conversations in Senator Loomis's office of what to do about this. Treasury is thinking about this as well. So I've had some conversation in the U.S. government about this. It's not clear. It's kind of like nuclear weapons. You know that nuclear weapons are very, very dangerous, but it's such a big problem that people really don't know exactly what to do about it.
Yeah, but I mean, look, what people don't appreciate often, because we do a lot of even within Silicon Valley, like if you're not sort of in that world, that a lot of this is just sort of punchline and punchline of jokes and so on. But an awful lot of ASIC development was driven by custom chips, custom ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits for mining purposes. And in fact, a lot of I also used to make the joke that you looked at sort of a lot of the early AI founders were involved in crypto, and I used to make the joke that people would say, "Oh, it's because it's all hype driven and GPU driven," and actually the reality was that it was actually more pragmatic than that. In fact, I was talking to an AI founder the other day on this subject, And it wasn't chasing hype. It was actually that the people who knew how to build multi-GPU clusters, and in fact, the people who got into crypto were the people who were building multi-GPU clusters for data science use cases and vice versa. And so there's a lot. So my point on all of this is that a lot of the people who actually are deep into this are very hardware aware, scale out, actually build out aware. So you will see a big piece of overlap.
So we did it in the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
We began with optimistic use cases, better AI, better drug discovery. And then we ended it on, oh my God, okay, what could happen? We have got to be careful about this. We've got to kind of end on.
No, I think, well, so what do you want to do? You want to end on quantum superintelligence? Because
let's go there. Let's go there.
Really go down the singularity, black hole.
They talk about are we living in a simulation or not, right? And one of the signs of they're living in a simulation is that a number of very, very rare events occur all at the same time. So, given the fact that, we're on the verge of superintelligence, we're on the verge of unleashing a quantum computing capability with exponentially more power. And, we have a slightly autistic person being the richest person in the world. It kind of lends some credence that we may be living in a simulation. But let's talk about quantum superintelligence for a minute. One of the interesting questions is how AI can actually be used for building better quantum computers. And one of the interesting areas is that in 2024, there was a team at Google and DeepMind that created, I think it was called Alpha Qubit. And what they were using is basically a transformer model to control the qubit to do error correction.
Right. This is the discussion we had in also. Yeah. Yep.
It's starting to become recursive, right? We're getting more and more powerful AI models that can help us control these very noisy qubits and do all things like error correction. Yeah. And so we see kind of like a bit of a singularity coming along because the models are getting smarter and smarter. You're using these quantum computers can get to the point where, at least what we plan at Qolab, is to use the existing AI infrastructure, manufacturing infrastructure, to build more and more quantum computers that are very, very powerful. So I think there's probably at least 3 or 4 exponentials here that are all stacking on top of each other, which is going to be very interesting. And to be honest, I don't quite understand. And then last but not least, the value of the quantum computer is likely to be triggered by whoever can use the quantum computer to build the most powerful foundation model. So these kinds of iterative, exponential, and recursive properties that we see right now makes it a very interesting time to live.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, this has been just an amazing conversation, right? Again, yes. I'm going to say that at least one out of the 2 of the podcasters was less interesting than the speaker that we had, and I can absolutely guarantee that. Alan, thank you so much. Okay, it was
great to hang out with you again virtually on this, and it feels just like old times in the lunchroom. So hopefully we get you up here soon and up in the city, hang out with us, and also get you back on the podcast to the extent that we actually have viewers who want to see us.
And we have got to say is that if you kind of measure the distance from, do you know somebody who knows a Nobel Prize winner? Okay,
which is a regular thing these days. Yes,
Alan is a distance one.
Okay? True.
Okay, absolutely. Hey, Alan, thank you very much again.
All right, thank you very much, and I look forward to collaborating with you.
Oh. We're supposed to end on a high note, and we did not. Yes.
See you. Bye now. Thank you.
So that was awesome. Actually, look, it was interesting. Is, well, obviously a lot of callbacks to our previous great episode on quantum as well. And I think that so for me, a couple of things. One is we're at this point where, and for me, actually, it's like the early days of ML and AI, which is that you talk to a lot of people, you start to get the common patterns, right? Because in these new spaces, they are sort of the three blind men and the elephant, right? Like we need to sort of explore it from a bunch of different directions. You start to get the commonality. Some of the points that Alan made brought a bunch, reinforced a bunch of the previous things, came at it from a slightly different direction. And I think, and I love the roadmap. Like this, for me, we now know, look, these timelines, plus or minus, a couple of years or whatever, but for many of us in the weeds, we're like, oh, well, it's not 2028, it turned out to be 2030 or whatever. But right, like we just lived through over the last couple of years what, for many people, the fact that we were all very surprised was about what I feel is kind of the myopia of timelines, right? Like there were a set of people who were saying, no, this stuff is going to happen. And you had a set of other people, very smart, respected people that we, in fact, some of us as well, going and saying, oh, it's never going to happen. But what we were, and the reasons we gave were off by 2 years, right? GPU scaling and so on. And suddenly you solved those, and things people said are never going to happen, because what they really meant was never going to happen in the next 2 years. But we were incapable of sort of widening or opening up our minds to that. I think if you wave your hands, it'll go back to you. Anant, okay. Oops, the AI is kicking in.
It's all
yes.
Hey,
anyway, but love that conversation from that perspective.
Hey, and I would say, and again, notwithstanding the fact that people have comments about us as podcasters, I am just loving the content that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I think that, I listen to a lot of podcasts and so do you.
So what you're saying is, tell your friends how cool this podcast is.
Exactly.
We depend on your viewership. If you like this, go and tell 10 people.
Exactly. Absolutely. And in keeping with that tradition,
yes,
our next podcast will be with Lynn Shaw.
Yeah.
Okay? She's the CEO of Fireworks. And Fireworks has on the path of cracking the code of delivering some really, really phenomenal inference scaling, okay, without resorting to kind of custom-built chips.
Yeah.
Okay. And it'll just be a fantastic discussion on what's really happening with inferencing, what's happening with fine-tuning of models and all that. So we are looking forward to that next time when we meet.
Yep.
And last time you were a bit remiss in not thanking the people behind the scenes. So please, Ed, if you can.
Well, I think that we start with Michelle Bird, who runs all the aspects of this, makes us look very good.
We want to continue with Hannah Press, right? Who kind of takes care of all the content and interactions. As you can see, we know the panelists in general, but kind of drilling down on what are the specific sets of topics. Though, of course, for much to our chagrin, we don't fully follow the script that get kind of laid out for us.
Yes, and then Milan Higginbottom, who of course just keeps this whole program running. In addition to many other responsibilities, this is not. I know many people think, based on the quality of our podcast, that this is our day job, because how could it not be? But
now you're stretching it a bit too much.
But in fact, so working this in with the many other things that we have to get done, and keeping the show on the road. Of course, Milan has many other responsibilities as well. But as the executive producer, if you will, of this. Is much appreciated as well for her contributions, and of course all the fact that we've had a lot of folks, and Alan being the latest of this, who are we are calling in personal favors from everyone we know to please show up on our podcast, and so far so good. We're very appreciative of all of these.
Yes. The first time we get somebody who says, I want to be on your podcast.
Yes.
Okay. we're going to kind of celebrate balloons. But okay,
yes,
awesome. With that, thank you very much, folks. Have a wonderful day whenever you're listening to it, and take care.